0, 1. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Barracks, the podcast where service ends but the story begins. And I'm joined by Pippa Delamere-Wright, who was the first female Army Commando to pass the course. Welcome. Yeah,
Hi, Gina.
you got it right, yeah.
You did, well done.
We knew each other as singlies, didn't we? So
Many moons ago. I think I was quite pleased social media didn't really exist then. We could have had a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I don't know, yeah. Especially in Crazy Daisies and things like that. Brilliant. So everyone's going to be really interested in this because I've always known that you were the first female, and when you get other ones going through and it's the first female, I'm like, no, it's not. It was Pippa. She was the first. So let's go back to your early life before you joined the military. How was that for you?
Oh, it was reasonably my childhood was quite idyllic. I was up in the Highlands of Scotland where I'm living now. I've come back to raise the family up here, and I just spent a lot of my time outside, and my dad was really keen that we did sort of a lot of hunting and campfires and just being outdoorsy type kids, climbing trees. We spent a lot of time out in the snow. I enjoyed the freedom of the outdoors, which I think really led to my passion of being outdoors and probably a little bit of resilience to the cold and wet. I don't know. And then I go
Scotland.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do remember some very, very big snowstorms and stuff. And occasionally we would walk to school. It was about sort of 3 miles. So I think it was all really building up to something outdoors eventually.
Yeah. So what do you think inspired you to go and join? You went the Sandhurst route, didn't you?
I did. I was actually revising for my A-levels. I was sent to boarding school when I was about 9 years old. My parents carted me off, and I was revising for exams. I knew I had part of a gap year planned, not all of it. And I saw an advert in a magazine for a gap year with the Army, and it ticked all the boxes. They said they were going to feed me, clothe me, travel, all those sort of great things, responsibility, and pay me. And I just thought, what's not to like about that? And they threw the old sport and adventure training hook in there as well. So I ended up contacting the recruiting office, and the next thing I knew, I was at RCB, the regular commissions board in Westbury, being asked lots of questions that I didn't know. I didn't know anything about the military. I was really naive, not got any family connections. Somehow managed to get through it and found myself on a gap year in the military with the Signals, which was great. 36 Globetrotters, ended up Trinidad, Tobago, Germany, adventure training, parachuting, all this sort of stuff. So when my time came to finish, they asked if I wanted a bursary while I was at university, and that would then commit me to joining up for full time after my degree. For a minimum of 3 years. And again, I thought, well, I'd be silly to turn that down, a job as soon as you walk out of university, with all the stuff that I'd enjoyed already in the gap year.
Yeah, so I never knew that. So my first unit was 36. So it must have just been after you, if you went to Trinidad and Tobago. Because they obviously gave you the best regiment to go to, because we were, as you say, the Globetrotters, we were everywhere. I think I went to 35 different countries in my first 3 years at service. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How did we never know that? Or maybe we did. Maybe it was a... Oh, so brilliant. So, yeah, so that's interesting, a gap year. That's an interesting way to recruit, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they do still do that.
Yeah.
I think it's a good avenue in for people, especially sort of testing the water beforehand. You're not given as much responsibility, but you go to Sandhurst for I think it's like 4 weeks, then you do a course, and then you get sent to whichever unit, and you're sort of mentored and looked after, and leaned on heavily, I think, for guard duty. Another one. And then I was just really lucky. I think I had the right adjutant who just said to me, we should be giving you a bursary for coming back. I think if he hadn't mentioned that, my life would have taken a completely different pathway. And then, leaving university, I did some TA work while I was at university, but not a lot. And then joining up full time and doing the year at Sandhurst after university was brilliant, and I loved it. I went on to have sort of 17 years of when I remember passing off the square at Sandhurst, and my aunt, and overhearing my uncle talking to my dad, and my uncle sort of saying to my dad, "Oh, this is an interesting career," and my dad saying, "Yeah, it'll just be, it'll be until she finds something else," and that took me 17 years to find something else. So yeah, I think it was a great decision, and full of opportunity. I still think the army now is a great opportunity for people who haven't got a complete focus on, career, if they want to go, and if they want to be a specific career in sort of, medicine or accountancy or something like that. If they haven't got that focus, I'm sounding really old with those sort of, I should be saying entrepreneurship and AI development and, cyber warfare. If they haven't sort of, I think, got that focus, I still think the army is a really good stopgap. It gives you a lot of skills and a lot of exposure to areas that perhaps you wouldn't know existed unless you're actually serving in the military.
Yeah, without that, I mean, I got 2 degrees from the army. Well, I'm going to get called out here. It's not quite a degree. It was a HND in engineering, and then I got a degree in security. With the money that they give you to do stuff. And you're right, because you join up and you don't really know much about the world or life, because you're like, you would have been, what, 21? I think I was 19.
Yeah.
So you're still young, aren't you? You don't really know that much, and it does open up so much. And the signals is forefront of technology. It was then and it is now. So yeah, it's a just like, even if you go for a year, gap year, and see if you like it, it's still gonna show you the world a little bit, isn't it?
It's gonna teach you all the skills. I mean, I worked at the Army Foundation College in Harrogate, which is for the 16-year-olds, and they would come and, having decided to not pursue further education, but the skills that they got in that year, in that half year of training at Harrogate, they learned how to make a bed, how to iron, how to look after themselves in the field. They did leadership skills with the leadership and development wing. They did qualifications. They kept doing their maths and their English. They did adventure training and sports, and just the opportunity that's afforded to them there. And they get paid, and they do sport and the rest. I mean, I couldn't believe that I was ever going to get paid to stay really fit and actually, go and enjoy the things that I really enjoyed. So I think it really is a great opportunity for even any age group to do.
Yeah, definitely. So what did you end up joining up as originally?
So my gap year was the signals, but then when I went back to Sandhurst, I was dating a parachute regiment officer for my sins, and there was a guy in their mess who was cap badge with them, but he was AGC ETS, and he was a representative at Sandhurst, so he came along to the sort of arms and service night. I was chatting to him just as a friend, because I knew him from my boyfriend's mess, and he was like, right, well, you're thinking who you're thinking about joining. And at that time, I was still thinking maybe signals, maybe artillery, something quite meaty. I wasn't really sure. And he said, oh, well, have you thought about the ETS? And I said, well, no, because every time I see you, Mike, you're just drunk. You don't tell me anything about the job you actually do. So, yeah, he told me a little bit about the role. And I've always really enjoyed helping people and training people. And when I was at university, I qualified as a swimming instructor, and that sort of gave me my pocket money. I would go and teach swimming. And I've always enjoyed getting the sporting qualifications to then coach and mentor people. So what he started telling me about the AGC ETS, I was like, well, actually, that kind of sounds what I'd really enjoy, because I was going to be sort of independently working with loads of different arms and services. I would be moving with them, which would give me a really broad insight into the military as a whole. Now I would gain a qualification, a PGCE, I just it really sort of resonated with me, helping the soldiers with maths and English and communication skills and leadership. So I signed up for the AGC ETS, and they didn't even make me do the beams or anything like that. So there was no drinking games involved. It was purely based on a sober decision to join what I thought would be a really good contribution to the military, and it was. I really enjoyed being ETS.
Yeah, so that's the Army Education.
Yeah, Adjutant General's Education Training Services.
Yeah. So, yeah, which is, it's a little job that not a lot of people, civilians, will know about. So the first time I think I came aware of you guys was when I was on my Education for Promotion. Yeah, and it was really interesting because we were signals. I had A levels, and then you mixed in with infantry, and some of them have never, gone past school, and it was really eye opening and you were lent on a little bit of signals to help some of the guys who were maybe struggling. But yeah, that was the first time I came aware of that part of the army, which was really interesting. Yeah, because
it had a lot of strings to it. I mean, I worked. My first posting was actually with the infantry. I was 6th Army Education Centre in Warminster, and that was all the promotion courses. And then I helped establish the Education Centre in Kosovo, and I was working with lots of different cap badges out there. And then I worked at the Army Foundation College. That was 16-year-olds. I worked at Winchester, so I was working with the Potential Officers Development course. That was all the soldiers who were hoping to be officers. So again, that was quite an interesting course, and the personalities. And then worked with 3 Commando Brigade and worked with the Royal Marines, who are intelligent, switched on guys and girls, and then worked as a training development advisor. I did a master's in management training and development and went on to specialize in training development. And that was, it was a really interesting career. And I'm just really glad that I could help loads of different groups within the armed forces.
Yeah, so that couldn't be any further away from going on the Commando course, could it? So I knew you when we were in the Army ski team, and we all knew you were mega fit, and it was before you went on selection, but it's still miles away from that. So, why is probably my question.
I'm an opportunist, and I was simply given the opportunity. I was working in Warminster. There was a guy in the mess who went down to do his all arms. They were under a remit to look in to investigate whether females were capable of actually performing the same roles or the same tasks. And they sort of asked around quietly if anyone knew anyone, and he said, yeah, some lunatic up in Warminster. She just goes running up down the hills for fun and stuff. So I was invited to go down, and I actually, on one of the first couple of invitations, we would go down. It was like a familiarization visit. And on one of them was actually Mandy Mason, who was a PTI at Sandhurst, and I just literally met her at Lympstone. It was incredible sort of seeing her. And we ran through a couple of assessments, and then I sort of was focused on Kosovo. So I went away, and I was told when I was in Kosovo that they had decided to allow females to apply, albeit they didn't announce it on the front pages. So it was quite quiet. And if I wanted to give it a go, that this would be the time to do it. And as I don't know, the serendipity, stars alignment, when I was out in Kosovo, the brigades changed over, and actually 3 Commando brigade then became my commanding brigade. And I was actually working with Commando Logistic Regiment, where the education centre was. So I was training with these guys who were all arms. I was eating with them. I was chatting with them. So I asked them, I said, what would you think if a female actually applied and did this? And I would say that they were all really positive. I don't know if they're positive because they thought it's never going to happen, but they were all really positive about it. And I just thought, well, okay, you know, I'll give it a go. And I was actually in a really good environment for my pre-training, because when I wasn't doing whatever the work I required on my downtime, I was training, and I had a lot of time to do the training, but with these guys who had all done it before. So that was really useful. And I came back and just said, yeah, like, I'll give it a go, and sign me up. And there were 3 of us on my first attempt. Spoilers, I had 3 attempts. But yeah, on my first attempt, there was actually Claire Phillips, myself, and a corporal called Jo, and I can't remember Jo's surname, but she was a character and a half. If I could ever track her down, I'd love to, because she just kept me going with morale. She was brilliant. And then I think there was about 73 blokes on the course with us at the same time. But they have a huge dropout rate on the all arms. It's 9 weeks long. And yeah, it is literally like, I don't like to liken it to the Royal Marines, but it is the same assessments as the Royal Marines, and it is almost 99.9% need not apply. It is a state of mind, and it is one of the most grueling courses that is acknowledged worldwide, physically and mentally. Yeah.
So you were, in my opinion, when you went there, you were mega fit, as you say. You crazy jock that ran up mountains, but the physique of a female is by biology not as strong. So you know, we can look at it that way. But you do see, when you're going through selection and stuff, you see men starting to drop off that are physically more stronger, more fitter because of their gender. So you touched on it there. My mindset can take you a bit further. So how's your view on that, and at what points did you break and you were carrying on?
Yeah, so I felt really honoured to be there. And I also I get, they've labelled it now sort of imposter syndrome. And I guess I kind of had that. I was really grateful for the opportunity, just because, you know, I get to do this. I was excited by it. So I didn't fully unpack. I literally thought every day was going to be my last day. I took every day as it came, and, you know, would see the sun come up and think, right, today I'm going to give it my best, but my best might not be good enough. If it is, I'm really proud of what I've done. And if it isn't, I'm still really proud of what I've done. Physically, I just tried to keep myself in the best condition, and I had some really good, I say, training partners and advice from PTIs. When I came back from Kosovo, I was at Warminster, and I was advised, you know, just get really good with your own body weight. Don't worry too much about carrying the load, because that will come. So I worked continually with my own body weight. So the rope climbing, the press ups, the heaves, and then running, and then just built a pack into that, the 30-pound webbing and pack, and did everything with that on, which I guess now would sort of be a bit like wearing the ruck vests to do everything. So that meant I didn't have to worry about the physical. I didn't have to think, oh, it's a 9-mile speed march, how am I going to cope physically? I could 100% concentrate on the mental aspect. And it's true that you'll break physically before you do mentally if you've got a strong mental outlook. And I think because I didn't set myself I couldn't, there was no other female that had done it. So I couldn't say, oh, I've got to get to week 2 because someone called Sarah got to week 2, or I couldn't, say I'm going to finish this because that female's done it. I literally took every day as it came and each challenge as it came. And then, rode that high mentally and then fixed on the next one. What's my next objective? And I broke it down incrementally. So I didn't really look at the bigger picture. I just broke it down. So can I do this? I'm going to focus on the 9-mile or the 12-mile low carry or the 30-miler. But the big thing, I think, for me, I could have gone on that course and the guys on the course could have made my life hell. Don't get me wrong. My first attempt, the training team made my life hell. They did. But the actual guys, my buddies, my buddy, they could have been really horrible, and they weren't. You bash her up with them and you cook scran for each other, you look after each other's kit, you make a wet or a brew depending on which side of the fence you're sitting on. And they could have jacked on that, and they could have said, they could have taken something of mine and dumped it in the river, they could have thrown stuff in the mud, they could have done loads of stuff, but they didn't. And I think because everybody realizes, well, they're all under that pressure, they're all trying to do it, and they've got so much to concentrate on, and the appreciation is that if you're still standing up having done a 12-mile load carry and it's in that weather, then you've earned the right of standing next to the person next to you. And they very quickly gave me that respect, but that encouragement as well. And I do remember there was a guy, and he was a couple of inches shorter than me, and we were doing one of the speed marches, and it's called the Lympstone Shuffle, and I absolutely love it because I always really struggled on speed marches, but the minute I learnt the Lympstone Shuffle, everything fell into place, and we were shuffling along, and he just looked at me, and he was hanging out, and he just went, oh, just, why won't you quit? And I just looked at him and I said, well, why don't you quit? And he looked and he went, because you haven't quit. And I said, well, I won't quit if you won't quit. And so I think, there was a little bit of that mentality as well, that the guys were playing off about the fact maybe I made it a bit more tricky for them, because they were like, oh God, there's a female now, I've got to keep going. But it is definitely a mental person's game. If you can stay, I don't know if lucky is the right word with it, stay injury free, and you've been sensible about your training and you are fit, you will be able to achieve that. It does wear you down, and it's meant to wear you down. War wears you down, it degrades you, and you need to keep going. But the main thing is if you've put section attack in and you're physically fit and you're tired, you've got to have the mental capacity to be switched on enough to do the next one and the next one and the next one. And it is that will keep you going. And that's what I did. I just took little steps each time, broke it down, and then just ploughed on with a bit of stubbornness, I think.
Yeah, I think I hear that time and time again. When I've interviewed some of the SAS and the SBS guys and deck guys, and they all say the same with selection, that it's day by day, because sometimes you don't even know what the DS are looking for, and it could be that they just don't like the way you walk one day. So in maybe not in the Commandos, but in other selection groups, and it's just
Commandos, that was one of the reasons I felt I would get a fair turn at the Commandos, because I was living in the infantry mess back in Warminster, and there was a lot of paras in there, and they there were two things, because there was obviously the P company and there's the all arms, and people sort of like, oh, should I do this or should I do that? And people were asking me, so, oh, why haven't you thought about P company instead of the all arms? And there were two reasons not to do P company for me. One was the milling, and I thought, I really thought they'll just put me up against the biggest bloke. I didn't know, and I thought, and it's really easy to get injured, and if you get injured, that's you done. And the other part of P Company is they do stand you up and they say you're out, you're out, you're out, even if you've made the standard. Whereas the all arms, if you make the standard and you make the timings and you carry the actual weight, there at no point, other than a huge backlog of administration errors, can they literally stand up and say your face doesn't fit. And I can understand why they do that with like selection with the SAS. Their face has to fit. But the all arms, I thought, was going to be my best shot if I wanted to do something at that level, of getting a fair chance of actually of achieving it off my own ability, rather than someone just saying, yeah, I don't like your face or your hair color or something like that. So yeah.
And I get that with the milling, because when I had to do the milling, it was horrendous. It was one of the things, that and interrogation training, the two things I dreaded, and I still dread if I ever had to do them again. So you were miles apart from what you went in as. So where did you get your infantry training from? Did you just hone in from what you'd done at Sandhurst, or were the guys helping you that you were attached to before you went? Because that's a big gap, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of us in our platoon at Sandhurst, and we were fairly switched on cookies. And I think, I know they mix things up now. We were still an all female platoon, and there were definitely some of us that really engaged with the field exercises, and were sort of organised and switched on for that. And I think I was kind of lucky, but when I went for the all arms training, I had some very good friends that had gone through the all arms already, males, and they helped me with my kit. One of them was the sort of he won the sort of top student award, and he helped me hone my kit, and he was like, yeah, you literally cut this toothbrush in half, but you need a full thing of toothpaste. And he sort of got all my kit to be exactly spot on. And then during the all arms course, because they take artillery engineer guys, and they can be 17, 18, 19, they can literally have come straight out of training, gone to their unit, and then done a pre-all arms with their unit, and then be straight on the all arms. So in less than maybe a year of them leaving their basic training, they can be there. So they do build you up, because they have a standard and they have a way of what they want to see. So for example, I had never cleaned a rifle the way I cleaned one when I went there, but they take it apart and they show you, they say, this is the standard, this is how you get to this standard, this is what we're looking for, anything below and you're on the flank, which you didn't want to be. And so you're given, they're very good instructors there, and they take you through that. You've got to be switched on with it, and you've got to literally take it though, and then that's you've had your lesson, you've had your training, and then you're in the field, and then you're using it. And if you are below standard and you've failed to meet the required levels, then quite rightly you're on the flank and you're beasted until you do get it right. So there's a big incentive to get the field skills right, and but they're very good. But you become, because you're part of your field kit, you literally do everything with it, that you live in it. You pretty much know where everything is. You can do it with your eyes shut. You can clean it's that whole American scenario. You can literally clean your weapon with your eyes closed, because you're eating, drinking, sleeping it the whole time. And I think everyone who's on that course, whether they've passed or failed, their field skills would be much above and beyond anyone else that they'd serve with then alongside them.
So what was the point that nearly broke you on the course? What was the worst bit?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, the load carries were incredible. The weight, they really were. So that was hard going, and I fell behind on them. But I mean, I made the timings and the cutoffs, so I think they were probably the ones I struggled with the load carries. But I don't know. I think all of it was challenging. I have to say, again, I wouldn't like to say the words enjoyed, but I did like the regains. I remember being really cocky, thinking I'm really good at the regains, which is where you pull yourself out along a rope on your stomach, and then you have to drop down, so you're hanging almost like you're doing a pull up with your belted kit, and then you have to pull yourself back up over the rope and swing your leg to get yourself back on top to then be able to crawl along it again. And this is all part of the sort of the mountain leader type scenario that you might need to, covering getting across a crevasse on a rope, ship to ship, all these sorts of things. So that there's reasons for them doing it, but inherently they're quite historical as well. And I remember being really cocky, thinking I'm really good at this, and going out across what they call Neptune's tank, which is this huge expanse of water that they have in a tank down the bottom field at Lympstone. And the PTI lets you crawl out, and then they literally shout at you because otherwise a lot of them will just freeze and not drop off the rope into the hanging position. So the PTI will start shouting at you, tells you all to lower. So you lower down and you're hanging there, and then you have to swing to get back up. And I can't remember if it was on the lowering down or the swinging, and I overswung, but I literally went to come off the rope and swing and totally misjudged it and just crashed into Neptune's tank, which you wearing all your kit, so you had 30 pounds, I sank to the bottom. And again, being quite a strong swimmer, that was quite a shock. And then you have to tread water and ask permission to get out of Neptune's tank. So I never took it for granted again that I was good at the regain. And I think the lesson I took forward from that was never actually take it for granted that you're good at anything, because anything can go wrong on the time, dirt, grit in your eyes, something like that. Yeah. But the load carries, I completed and I did them, but they were really hard. It was the most weight I'd ever carried. And yeah, everything else I kind of just got my head down and just did it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think, the most memorable, apart from getting the dagger and your green beret, what was the most memorable part of it, if you've got one, for good reasons?
On the course or afterwards?
Let's go for on, if you've got anything.
On the course. On the course, I was on my third attempt, for various reasons, which would take far too long to go into, but I was on my third attempt, and the rest of the course that were with me, we'd done the 30 miler, I think, on the Wednesday, and I'd stood in the square and on Dartmoor, and I'd watched them all get their green beret, except for one other guy who had to do the endurance course, which he had his third attempt, and I had the bottom field as my third attempt, my third and final attempt. So we finished the 30 miler, we'd done all the other assessments. This was on the Wednesday. On the Thursday, I had a day of downtime to just go and practice, go and whatever I needed. And then the course all went out Thursday night on the piss. That was their end of course. Good for them, everything, all that sort of stuff. And the Friday morning, I was due to do the Tarzan assault course as my final attempt to see if I would get the beret. And the course were told under no circumstances were they to come out of the barracks. They were to remain inside. I was allowed one member of the squad to come out and help me with my weapon and my webbing. So Troy Gordon, who's a very good friend of mine, he came out and helped me and did my warm-up with me. And then just before I started, I looked over and I saw that all the guys on the course had basically just told the staff where to go, and they'd all come out to watch me. And that was a real moment, because not because I felt for myself, oh, that's amazing that they're supporting me. That was good. But actually I thought, if they can do this for me, it sounds weird, but they're going to be more accepting in the future of females integrating. And actually it's not a big deal for the guys on the ground, the boots on the ground. It's the politicians that have got the issue. It's the armchair warriors that had the issue, because these are the guys who are going to have your back. They're going to drag you out of a situation. You're going to give your life for these guys, and they're going to give their life for you. And if they're all right with it, then and they're here now for me, then that means they're going to be there in the future for anyone else that does this. And that was really quite powerful for me to think that hopefully that was the situation. You know, it might have been they all just wanted to laugh if I failed. I don't know. But yeah, that was quite memorable.
That's like a real G.I. Jane moment. I won't repeat what they say on it, but well, you know they've got your back, really.
Yeah.
And also just to clarify for everyone is allowed 3 attempts.
They are, yeah. So you can, and that applies, it gets broken down. So let's say, for example, you're on the course and you get medically discharged, you can come back another 2 times. So you can have 3 attempts. When you're on the course for any of the actual Commando tests, you have 3 attempts. So if that's the endurance course, the 30-miler, or the Tarzan assault course, or the 12-mile load carry, if you fail it the first time, you get a second chance. If you fail it the second time, you get a third chance. So that's extant. And there's no exceptions for that, which again I think is one of the reasons the All Arms is probably the most fair course in our armed forces that we've got.
Yeah, and you made a good point as well with acceptance of females within all roles, as they're all accepted now. But what do you think? What is one of the misconceptions that people think that women can't do in elite combat roles?
It was interesting because I always people always ask me, and I always say it's not the females that have got the issues, it's the blokes that have got the issues. I mean, they're literally sort of, you know, there's a lot of puffing of chests that if you walk into a room full of blokes that, you know, regardless of military or civilian, you know, there's a lot of, you know, puffing of chests and stuff, and guys behave differently around girls. And I understand it from the physiology and the biology and everything, but you know, it's the guys that have the problems, not the girls. The girls stay focused, and I think again, if you're in the right unit, and the people have the right focus, it's the people that don't have the right focus that cause the problems. And I was never one to kind of play on the female aspect, if you see what I mean. But I was quite lucky that I didn't have female aspects that I needed to kind of play on. I mean, you know, I just got on with everything. There are ways of dealing with the different physiological elements that, you know, females go through. We generally do cry by way of, you know, expression and stuff, and sometimes that, you know, can probably affect guys a bit more. But for operational effectiveness, I think anyone who's going to go for that sort of role has that mindset anyway, and I think that they don't go in to that role naively thinking I'm going to be in this close quarter, I'm going to be working alongside these people. I mean, I would not want to be part of a, you know, part of a tank commander's crew and in an enclosed space, you know, with 4 or 5 other blokes. I mean, it's bad enough sharing a house with my husband and my son, you know, and the amount of body odors that they can emit. So, but I think you wouldn't go into that naively either. You wouldn't go in thinking, oh, I'm going to get my own little spot over here and I'm going to get, you know, this different treatment. And I think there have been a lot of doors have been opened and there have been concessions, and the military is, you know, addressed a lot of the issues with the kit and the clothing. They haven't got it all right yet, but we are the females are the minority in this service. So you could almost say you've got to look after the majority and try and look after some of the minority, but you're not, your main focus is where's our main strength and focus, and it's going to be the majority. But I think they have looked at a lot of female roles, and they've looked at female kit, and they've looked at different lots of groups and things like that, and they've made a lot of forward momentum to make these changes and make it acceptable for women in all of these roles. And I think because there's now, it's not necessarily a blur, and there's definitely, there's still female male roles, but I think it's generally more blended. So there's not generally, if you're told now, if you're in a particularly male dominated group, if you were told there was a female coming in, I think people are more accepting now. There isn't that sort of how are we going to cope with this, and what's going to happen, and what these problems are going to be, because there's generally been a female in every role now. So we've dealt with these problems, we've dealt with these issues, and they haven't been as big and dramatic as everybody is expected. And like I said, I think it's the boots on the ground that matter. And I found certainly that those guys were mature enough to just get on and professional enough, I should say, to want to get on and do an actual job. And I think that, again, it comes to the heart of it. We all join up to serve king and country. And that is foremost in our mind. Certainly when we're deployed on operations, not if the person next to me is a female or not, but we're here to do a job. And if I can rely on that person to get me out of this situation, or to stand up with me or support me 100%, then I don't care if they wear, pants, boxer shorts, bras, have a shaved head, have a beard, or whatever their sort of, private parts look like. That's it. Get on with it.
Yeah. No, it is the team, isn't it? And it's trusting the team. And no matter what gender, as long as you have all got the same qualifications, standards, and values, really, that's how the military operates, isn't it? And that's probably what you and others have had to do, is break down those barriers and make people know that it's the team, not the gender. I know when I worked with a few booties, Royal Marines, they were like, well, what do we do? And I just treat me like one of the lads. Well, maybe not punch me in the arm or something, but she's huge. Yeah. So it is interesting that I think in the military you kind of understand that, but it's changed. People have still got that gender bias when they look at the army or the military, and they think, oh, females in the army. It's maybe a specific problem.
I think, again, it's perhaps a dystopia. They don't quite know and understand. Maybe it's just not in their focus. So it's generally whatever they get fed by the media, and that tends to lead public opinion. Yeah.
So I know you don't really talk about it much or advertise it much, but how do you think it changed your life in the military and then after the military?
Yeah. Sadly, I do think it was a hindrance for me in the military. People made very quick assumptions of who I was and what I was like, and a lot of people thought they knew me before they even sort of had met me. I'd go on courses and people were like, oh, I know you. And I'm like, no, you don't. And so that did cause me, I think, some hurdles that I had to sort of navigate more than I would have done. I've been contacted over the years whenever there's been a situation that's involved sort of females in the military and changing roles or opening roles up to females. And again, I was never one to be an advocate for females. I was never one that was going to protest to open up everything for females. So I didn't see myself as a female advocate for that, but I was pleased I'd managed to support the policies and the arguments, and dispel a lot of the mistruths. I was really pleased for that. And then going forward after my military career, it's been nice because I've managed to weave it into sort of talking about resilience and talking about nature nurture and how my upbringing perhaps affected what I was able to achieve. And so I've had some sort of good, interesting public speaking with that. My children are 13 and 11 now, and I say I'm really pleased there wasn't social media when yourself and myself were sort of around. But I see a lot of the stuff now, a lot of the Royal Marines, especially on Instagram, they're putting a lot of the training, like, training for the 9 miler and training for the bottom field. And I get tingles watching it. I really do. I can feel myself being there. And actually, I'm quite sad in a way that there's no real evidence of me doing it, because I was really conscious to not take photos when I was doing it. I was very conscious that I wasn't, I didn't write a diary. I didn't, all these things that perhaps maybe I should have done. Because now I tell, my kids obviously know what I've done and they kind of get their heads around it, but I don't think it really means, I don't think they quite understand it. And, it would be great to sort of, I don't know, I wouldn't take them down and throw them over the bottom field, but to somehow show them what it entailed. I've got some photos, but really not many. So they know I did this, but they don't quite understand the context at the moment. They know they can Google me. I come up on Wikipedia.
Well, you're famous if you're on Wikipedia, then you've made it.
Yeah.
Made it.
I mean, what I have done, and I know because I do get the occasional message from someone who says, you were really inspirational, and you really helped me. And I, like, for example, Rosie Wild, who was the first female officer to pass P Company, and I messaged her when she first passed and just sort of said, I know we don't know each other, but I just wanted to say, almost like, amigo to amigo, well done. I understand. And if you have any problems with being the first female, if it becomes a bit much, or you want someone who, probably the only other person in the military who could empathise with her, then let me know. And we just reconnected actually a couple of months ago, and she's still serving, and she's Army triathlete now and stuff. And so it gave me some camaraderie that I didn't expect. Some hurdles in my career that were expected and were disappointing at times. And then afterwards, it certainly opened some doors for me regarding, public speaking and inspiration. I've been around and sort of, I talk to Cubs and Beaver groups and guides and schools and things like that. But, I'm getting a bit long in the tooth now to sort of be talking about it, and it's a bit hard to sort of resonate. I think they'd rather now have all like the Steve Bartlett entrepreneurs and CEOs and things. But yeah, and I think the big thing for me was, you said what was the best thing on the course, and then I asked on the course or off the course, because off the course the best thing was I was getting ready to do this thing, and I walked into my parents' bedroom, and my mum was putting a lovely big pink hat on, and I was just sat there chatting to her, and she came over and she said, I want to thank you. And I was like, all right, Mum, yeah. And she said, as a little girl, I always dreamt of meeting the Queen, and I never thought it would ever happen, because we were invited the year I passed the All Arms. We were invited to the garden party, and I actually had a private one-to-one with the Queen with my parents. And my mum just stood there in her room getting ready for this garden party, and she started crying and saying, you've made this come true. And the fact that I'd managed to somehow make my mum's dream come true, as a default, it wasn't ever anything, meet the Queen, etc. I was really, really pleased, and that's sort of a thing that really sticks with me from achieving what I did.
Oh, that's a lovely story. Yeah. Yeah, bless them. Yeah, so we could probably chat for another hour, but what are you up to? What are you up to? Well, we haven't even caught up about our life, have we? Really? But what are you up to now as a civvy, apart from motivating the Scouts and the Beavers to be the next?
Yeah, so we, my husband and I, at the moment, we so we're up in Aberdeenshire, and we run a charity called Operation Cairngorms. When COVID hit, my husband's RDG, so they're a very close-knit home, community-driven, focused regiment, and I didn't have that with ETS, so I'm kind of lacking that. And during COVID, he was made aware of several people that he knew personally, and then others that had taken their own life. And he was working offshore at the time. We've got this woodland, and we were sort of just hanging out in it. And with COVID, we were using it for downtime with the kids. We then came up with putting something together to help kids come together before they went back into the classroom, because we knew how good being in the woods were, how nature therapy, for want of a better word, because we weren't really sure about it, but how it could affect everyone. And Stu, who was working offshore, he was coming back from being offshore, and he was coming to the woodland to decompress, for want of a better word. So we realised that this had a really positive effect on mental health, and we wanted to set something up and use the woodland to help people. So we set up Operation Cairngorms. We wanted it to be a safe space that people could come together. They could offload without judgment. They would meet people of the same sort of background. So we now run retreats, recalibration courses, and we also do sort of overnight camps with a campfire coffee once a month as well. And this year we've run our first families session, and last weekend we ran our first female veterans workshop. So it's doing really well, and we're focused on that and helping as many people as we can.
Oh, brilliant! I'll have to definitely get up and
jump on
board
with
them. Yeah.
And the coffee's free, so well, it's sponsored, so you'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, I'm always wanting to either get to North Wales or Scotland, so any excuse for me, really.
Well, definitely come along, and you can either come for one of the overnighters and bring a tent or sleep in a hammock, or we've got yurts or bell tents, or just come along for the Sunday campfire coffee.
Yeah, sounds really good. I'll have to make sure I put a link when it airs, definitely. So, I asked this to all my guests when we finish. So, who was your superhero or role model growing up?
Oh my goodness. Okay. I actually think probably I've got a few, because it went through the ages. I think I probably started with Wonder Woman. I don't think I wanted to be Wonder Woman, but I think the fact that she just seemed to do really well, and sort of always against the baddies and stuff. So I think I started with Wonder Woman, and then I crept into Lara Croft from Tomb Raider. And if there's a fancy dress party on, that's generally my go-to. I think I always wanted to be Lara Croft. And I think, if I could be Lara Croft now, I probably would jump at the chance. I think it was brilliant. That, and then Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2. Not Terminator 1, when she's got the funky hair and she's a bit of a
the one where she's a bit muscly.
Comes back in Terminator 2 and she's there doing the heaves, and she's got the muscle.
Yeah. Well, that was you in the Commando course, surely.
Yeah, I think they were definitely my heroines that I looked up to, and could emulate. Yeah.
So, what have we missed? Anything that we should have talked about, or have we? We probably got a lot we could have talked about.
Yeah, just a huge amount. No, I think we've covered it all. I mean, I love letting people know the true story. There's a lot behind the scenes that went on. I'd encourage any female, whether you're serving or civilian, who's unsure of whether they should take that step forward, to just do it, because the bottom line is, we get to do these things, and there are so many people that don't get to do these things. And if an opportunity comes your way, just grab it, just do it. What's the worst that could happen?
Exactly. Yeah, brilliant. So where can we find you and your charity online? For anyone's looking.
So we are, let me just make sure I get the exact link for you, because if I don't get that right, I will be in so much trouble. So we are www.opcairngorms.org. And we are on Instagram, and we're on LinkedIn under Stu Wright, and we're under Facebook as well. So you'll find us everywhere. And then take a look at that. My Stu actually is about to face a really big challenge. He's always trying to raise money, because we rely on external funding, but we sold our house to put the money into the charity, the CIC. And he's on a fundraiser at the moment. He has been part of the Ruck Race League this year, which is a worldwide event. And somehow I think he's managed to come 16th in the world, with another guy who he does it with here, Carl Stedman. And they've been invited to go to Atlanta to compete. And Stu would like to represent Op Cairngorms, and raise awareness for what we're doing with military serving and veterans, and their families and females as well. So they're trying to raise money just to get them across there to compete, to spread the word about what we're doing with Op Cairngorms. So that's I'll leave that one with everyone, and I can give you the link and things like that to add on. He would have had a word with me if I hadn't mentioned that.
Amazing. That sounds fantastic. So finally, the podcast is called Beyond the Barracks. So what does Beyond the Barracks mean to you?
I think, and I see it now with Op Cairngorms and the guys that come to us, because we work with the PRUs, so the guys who are still actually serving. And then we have people who have been out, 12, 20 years that come on our courses. And there's Beyond the Barracks can be a really, I think for some people can be really negative, a real worry to them. But I think that it's something to be embraced, that look at the barracks as, one step on the ladder of life, and everything that it gives you that community, it gives you those skills, it gives you that ability to sort of, look after yourself. And just think that all of that you get, you can take forward, so you can walk out of those gates and really just embrace what's on the other side. You don't have to be scared of it, because there's so much out there, and there's a lot of hands being extended to people on the other side as well. So don't think that the gates have shut and you haven't got that camaraderie, and you haven't got that way back in to that lifestyle, because there's so many people beyond the barracks now that can give you support, give you that lift, give you that hand, give you a pat on the back, any time that you need it or want it. But you yourself, you just need the courage to go forward and achieve whatever it is you want to, and you can do it.
That's a brilliant answer. And I think exactly right. You've got so many skills that you learn within, and then you take forward, which is why there's so many successful veterans out there, I think. But it's been a fantastic chat, and that's one good thing about social media is we get to reconnect with old friends, which is always a bonus, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thanks again for coming on, and I look forward to seeing how your husband does and getting up there to Scotland.
Impression how now it's out there.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Well, take care, and I'll definitely be in touch.
Thanks, Gina, and good luck with your ventures as well.
Yeah, thanks. Take care.